Hello everyone, and in today's video we're going to be taking a quick look at the BenQ EX270QM. This is a 27-inch 1440p IPS monitor with HDMI 2.1. And it also does feature some speakers and a couple other things as well, and it is a pretty good performer. But let's see if this performer is worth the $799 price tag that BenQ is asking. Starting off with the design of the monitor, this is going to be using a very familiar design language that BenQ has been using with their mobiuz lineup for the past few years. And personally, I think that the design language is fine. I don't think that it needs any major updates. If we can make the stand a little bit smaller, that would be great. If not, I kind of understand because it is a pretty large and heavy monitor. But also, can we please get rid of the orange on the stand? If you guys absolutely have to have orange accents, put them on the back where we can't see it when we have it set up in our gaming setups. But otherwise, I'm just going to use a monitor arm because quite frankly, the orange just does not go with everyone's setup. And if they don't want to use a monitor arm, they just want to use the stand, unfortunately, you got this ugly orange on the front of it. And I actually like orange. Orange is one of my favorite colors. But what if that day I don't really feel like orange? Okay, that's all I'm saying. Either make it gray, make it black, it doesn't really matter. Just make it monochrome so that we can customize the rest of our setups and not have this one thing throwing off our setups aesthetically. Put the orange on the back, that's fine, or don't put any orange at all, or make your logo orange. Take it off the front of the monitor stand, it's too much. We've been doing it for a while, we can remove it now, it's time. This monitor does also feature some Trevolo speakers that do sound really good as well for monitor speakers.
No more secrets.
As far as color performance, I measured it in at 100% sRGB color performance and also 98% of P3 coverage. I did also experience some pretty crazy Delta E's. When I had it in the RPG mode, the Delta E was about 11.5, but when you move it over to the sRGB mode, the Delta E goes down to under 1.5. If you are going to be using this monitor for color sensitive work, you definitely want to put it in that sRGB mode. Just don't forget when you're playing games and you're using RPG or FPS or something like that, and you go back to working, you'll want to make sure that you switch it back to the sRGB mode. That will actually be pretty easy because this monitor does also come with a remote, which is another great thing that BenQ mobiuz always includes with a lot of their higher end monitors, is a handy little remote that you can use to configure your on-screen display without reaching around to the back or to the bottom of the display. Brightness during regular use featured a maximum of about 392 nits, so it does get reasonably bright as well, but it's not going to be super bright where it's going to knock your socks off. But when you are using those HDRI modes, you will notice that it does give you some pretty decent HDR like effects. But again, this is an AI HDR that's built into the monitor. It's not going to be a true HDR experience like you would have like with a fully from a zone backlighting approach or even an OLED display. The HDR experience that you're going to have with this one is going to be decent, but it won't necessarily be super comparable to a higher end TV or super high-end gaming monitor. Now, where the EX270QM shines is going to be its speed as well as its clarity, because with the blur reduction mode on or off, you're going to get very snappy performance out of this thing, and you're also going to get some really good clarity. Now, one thing that I do want to mention when you are using the blur reduction mode is that it actually does not drop your brightness that much. Like, it is pretty comparable, and you definitely have some better performance as far as the clarity is concerned as well. But even when you switch it off, the clarity is still very good. As far as your overdrive settings, I would highly recommend using AMA number 2. That is going to give you the most clear as well as the snappiest performance without causing yourself a lot of artifacting on screen. And it's quite frankly going to be pretty distracting. AMA number 3 is definitely a slightly more noticeable improvement in terms of clarity, but it will also introduce a lot more visual aspects that you're not really looking for while you're playing games, and it is pretty distracting. So definitely stick to AMA number 2 with the blur reduction mode on or off. As far as connectivity, you're going to have one DisplayPort 1.4, two HDMI 2.1 ports that will allow you to use 1440p resolution and 120 Hz on both the PlayStation 5 as well as the Xbox One X and Series X. You don't really need HDMI 2.1 to do 1440p at 120 Hz, but it's kind of nice to have, I guess, for future proofing, but this would matter a lot more on a 4K panel. You do also have two USB 3.0 ports as well as a headphone jack, and unfortunately all of those are pretty hard to reach because they are with the other inputs, and it's just not nearly as good as the Dell implementation where they give you not only two but typically 3 or 4 USBs that two of them are very easily accessible along with the headphone jack, which encourages you to use it more often. But these you definitely want to plug in something that you're going to have plugged in permanently, because otherwise you're not really going to be reaching around to the back of your monitor trying to plug something in and out just for a quick USB stick, for example. It's just not that kind of port as far as simplicity and ease of connectivity. Now, as far as my experience using this monitor, it is very, very good. Again, I'm using AMA number 2, and typically I like to use it with the blur reduction mode on because it does make a pretty huge difference. And again, not a substantial hit to your brightness. And I really do love using that. This just shows me the potential of what BenQ can do with IPS panels, and I would love to see how much further they can push this and maybe include something in the highest end, like a full array LED backlighting where you can locally control the different zones to give an even better HDR performance. So maybe something like HDR 1200 with super tight knit control. I could definitely see something like that at like the $1,000 to $1,200 price range with one of these very good mobiuz panels. And I'm pretty sure that would even be a great panel for creators as well. The performance of this one is definitely very, very good. I just think that the price could be a little bit lower. And the reason why I say that is because the way that BenQ has this monitor positioned, they have the EX270QM as well as the EX27QM. The 27QM is 240 Hz, it's 1080p, and it costs half as much. It's literally $400. And this one that we're taking a look at, even though it does have a couple updated ports, it also features the AMD FreeSync that they both have. I definitely do think that charging double just seems a little bit unbalanced, and I would like to see the pricing parity be just a little bit closer. So I think that once this thing comes out and it goes on sale for about $700, in my opinion, is going to seem like a significantly better deal for $700 or less than just paying the full $800 for this panel. Speaking of $800, I'm also going to be comparing this monitor to one or maybe two other $800-ish gaming monitors as well. The Asus PG279QM that I also have had on hand for a really long time. I'm going to be doing a comparison between the EX27 and the PG27, as well as potentially, if I can get my hands on one, the newly released Alienware 280 Hz IPS monitor as well. So with that being said, be sure to look out for that video possibly sometime in December where I'm going to compare all three of them. This monitor, in my opinion, for $800, it definitely is worth it, especially for that color accuracy. But once it goes on sale, it's just going to be an even better deal in my opinion. Plenty bright, great motion blur performance. I just think that the only thing that this monitor can really work on is going to be having a little bit better design in terms of using those USB ports as well as the color palette on the stand. But I do want to thank you guys again for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are interested in picking up this monitor, I will have it linked in the description below. Thank you again for watching. I will see you in the next video.